The wind had teeth that evening. It cut through my coat as I stood on the sidewalk, staring at my daughter's house like a stranger studying someone else's life. The place was beautiful. 2 stories, white railings, warm yellow lights glowing behind wide windows. It was the kind of house I used to dream of giving her one day, back when dreams were all I could afford. I adjusted the collar of my old coat and looked down at the paper bag in my hands. The handles were damp from my sweat. Inside was a pumpkin pie I had baked that morning. I'd woken before sunrise, my joints aching, my fingers stiff, but I wanted it to be perfect. Thanksgiving was family, and no matter how quiet my phone had been these past years, she was still my daughter. I walked up the steps slowly, my knees protesting with every movement. Laughter drifted through the door bright, careless laughter. Glasses clinked, music played softly in the background. I caught a glimpse through the window, a long table, white tablecloth, polished silverware, people dressed in suits and dresses that whispered money and importance. I swallowed. Asterisk, it's okay. Asterisk, I told myself. Asterisk, you raised her for this, to have more than you ever did. Asterisk, I knocked. For a moment nothing happened. Then the door opened, but only partway. My son-in-law filled the gap. He looked exactly as he always did these days, confident, clean, cut, wearing success like it was stitched into his skin. His eyes flicked from my face to my shoes, lingering there just a second too long. "Oh," he said, "it's you." "Yes," I replied, forcing a small smile. "Happy Thanksgiving. I hope I'm not late." He didn't return the smile. Instead, he stepped forward, closing the door behind him so the warmth and noise were sealed away from me. "What are you doing here?" he asked. The question caught me off guard. I came for dinner." I said carefully, "Your wife invited me last month." He let out a short, humorless laugh. "I have nothing to thank you for, old man," he said, his voice low but sharp. "Get lost." For a second, I thought I had misheard him. The words didn't make sense. It's like hearing a language you once knew but had forgotten. "I'm sorry," I said. His expression hardened. "You heard me." Before I could respond, the door opened again. My daughter stepped out. She looked beautiful. Her hair was styled perfectly, her dress elegant and expensive. She looked far away, like someone I used to know. "Dad," she said, exhaling as if already tired. "Why are you causing a scene?" "I wasn't," I said quickly. "I just came for Thanksgiving." She glanced past me, then back at my face, her eyes darting over my coat, my worn shoes, the bag in my hands. "Dad," she said quietly but firmly, "only important people will be at this dinner. You don't belong here." The words settled into my chest, heavy and final. Important people. I remembered her first day of school, how she clung to my leg, crying because she was afraid. I remembered packing her lunches, cutting the sandwiches into shapes to make her smile. I remembered sitting beside her hospital bed the night her mother died, promising her that no matter what, she would never be alone. I had kept that promise. She hadn't. "I see," I said. My voice surprised me. It didn't shake. It didn't break. Maybe I had already used up all my tears over the years, alone in quiet rooms when no one was watching. "I didn't mean to disturb you," I added. She didn't answer. I turned around. The cold hit me again as I stepped off the porch. Behind me, the door closed softly, as if I had never been there at all. I walked a few steps down the driveway and stopped. My hands were trembling now. I looked down at the paper bag, at the pie I had made with such care. For a moment, I considered leaving it on the steps. Then I thought better of it, even that felt like begging. As I walked away, the laughter resumed behind the walls. Warmth, food, family. All of it locked safely inside, and I was left outside, alone. I had taken only a few steps when the sound behind me changed. The laughter that had once spilled freely from the house faltered like a record skipping. The music softened, then stopped altogether. I didn't turn around at first. Pride, thin and fragile, kept my feet moving forward, but something felt different. Inside the house, the silence was not empty. It was heavy. At the long dining table, guests sat frozen with forks hovering midair. Crystal glasses, once raised in cheerful toasts, rested untouched. Eyes shifted toward the door. No one spoke, yet everyone felt it, the sharpness of what had just happened. At the head of the table sat a man who hadn't laughed much all evening. He was older than most of the guests, his posture straight, his presence calm but commanding. While others had been busy impressing one another, he had been watching, not the food, not the decorations. The door, he had heard the words, asterisk old man, asterisk asterisk get lost, asterisk asterisk you don't belong here, asterisk the man set his napkin down slowly. Excuse me, he said. His voice was steady, but it carried enough weight to quiet even the soft clink of silverware. Chairs shifted as he stood. Conversations died completely now. Every eye followed him as he walked toward the door. My daughter noticed him rising and stiffened. Sir, she said quickly, forcing a smile, please, everything is fine. He didn't answer her. Instead, he opened the door. Cold air rushed inside, carrying with it the scent of winter and me. I was standing near the edge of the driveway, staring at the ground, trying to breathe through the tightness in my chest. I hadn't heard the door open. I hadn't expected anyone to come after me. Partner, a voice called out. I froze. No one had called me that in years. I turned slowly. The man stood there, framed by warm light, his coat already draped over one arm. His eyes met mine, and in them I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Respect. Wait, he said again. I'm with you. The world seemed to tilt. Behind him, the room was silent. My son-in-law stood pale and rigid, his confident posture gone. My daughter's hand was pressed to her mouth, her eyes wide with confusion and something close to fear. Sir, I think there's been a misunderstanding. My son-in-law said, stepping forward. His voice trembled just enough to betray him. This man, the boss interrupted calmly, is the reason you're standing where you are today. He stepped outside, closing the door gently behind him, as if giving the moment the privacy it deserved. I shook my head. You don't have to do this. I said quietly, it's Thanksgiving. I don't want trouble. He smiled faintly. You never did, he said. That's why you deserve better. I looked at him, then really looked at him, and memory stirred. A younger version of this man, sitting across from me in a cramped office years ago. Desperate, broke. Brilliant, I didn't think you'd recognize me, I admitted. How could I forget? He replied. You believed in me when no one else would. Inside the house, the guests sat in stunned silence, hearing fragments through the door, but understanding enough to feel the shift in power. The air that once buzzed with self-importance now felt fragile, uncertain. The boss turned back toward the door. Let's go inside, he said. There's something everyone needs to hear. I hesitated. I was told I don't belong. I said. He met my eyes. Then they're about to learn how wrong they are. As we stepped back toward the door, the silence followed us, thick, relentless, and louder than any insult ever spoken. Because some silences don't hide the truth, they expose it. The door opened again, but this time it didn't feel like a rejection. It felt like a reckoning. The boss stepped inside first, his presence instantly commanding the room. Conversations didn't just stop, they disappeared, as if no one dared breathe without permission. I followed him slowly, aware of every eye turning toward me, aware of how small I must have looked in my worn coat among tailored suits and polished smiles. Please, the boss said calmly, gesturing toward the table. Everyone remained seated. No one moved. My son-in-law stood near the center of the room, his face tight, his jaw clenched. The confidence he wore so easily before was gone now, replaced by a nervous stiffness. My daughter stood beside him, pale, her hands trembling slightly. The boss pulled out a chair at the head of the table, but he didn't sit. Instead, he turned to face them all. Before we eat, he said, there's something that needs to be said. He placed a hand on my shoulder. This man, he continued, is the person you just turned away. A murmur rippled through the room, quickly swallowed by silence. Many years ago, the boss said, I was nobody, no title, no money, just an idea and a stack of rejection letters. He paused, letting the words settle. Banks laughed at me. Investors shut doors in my face. Friends told me to be realistic. He looked at me. Then I met him. My daughter's eyes followed his gaze. Slowly, painfully, they landed on me. He didn't ask for a business plan. The boss went on. He didn't ask for guarantees. He listened. And when I was finished, he reached into his own pocket and gave me everything he had saved. I felt my throat tighten. That money paid for the first office. The boss said, the first equipment, the first chance. When the company began to grow, I offered him shares, a title, a seat at the table. He smiled sadly. He refused. Gasps echoed softly around the room. He said, just make something honest. That's enough for me. The boss turned toward my son-in-law now. You work for me because this man once believed in me. He said evenly, your promotions, your salary, your seat at this table, every bit of it traces back to him. My son-in-law's mouth opened, then closed. No words came out. And you, the boss said, turning to my daughter. She flinched. You live the life you live because he gave everything so you could have more than he ever did. And tonight, you told him he wasn't important. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't know, she whispered. The boss's voice softened, but only slightly. You didn't ask. The silence that followed was unbearable. I finally spoke. That was never my intention. I said quietly. I didn't come here to remind anyone of the past. I came because it was Thanksgiving, because family used to mean something. My daughter broke down then. Tears streamed down her face as she took a step toward me. Dad, I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I didn't realize, I didn't see it. I looked at her, the little girl who once believed I could fix anything, and felt both love and sorrow settle into my chest. The truth, I said gently, doesn't need witnesses. It just waits. The boss pulled out a chair and finally sat. Now, he said firmly, the table is set, but respect must come before gratitude. No one dared reach for their fork. Because the truth was no longer outside, it was sitting with them. For a long moment no one spoke. The candles flickered gently above the table, their warm light reflecting off untouched plates and trembling glasses. The feast, so carefully prepared, so proudly displayed, had become irrelevant. What mattered now sat quietly among them, wearing an old coat and a lifetime of restraint. The boss broke the silence first. I won't pretend I didn't hear what was said at the door, he said calmly. And I won't pretend it doesn't matter. My son-in-law shifted in his seat, his face pale, his hands clenched tightly in his lap. I built my company on loyalty, the boss continued, on recognizing character, not appearances, and tonight I saw a lack of both. He turned directly to my son-in-law. Effective immediately, he said, you are no longer part of my executive team. The words landed softly, but they crushed everything beneath them. Sir, please, my son-in-law began. This is not a negotiation. The boss replied, you embarrassed a man who showed more integrity than you ever have. That tells me everything I need to know. He then looked at my daughter. And you, he said, not unkindly, have confused success with worth. She lowered her head, tears falling onto the tablecloth. I raised a hand. That's enough, I said. Every eye turned to me. I didn't come here for revenge. I continued. And I didn't stay for punishment. I don't need anyone to lose for me to feel whole. The boss studied me, then nodded slowly. You always were like that, he said. I stood, pushing my chair back gently. My daughter jumped to her feet. Dad, please don't go. Stay. Let me make this right. I looked at her for a long time. Some things can't be fixed in one evening, I said softly. But they can be remembered. I reached into the paper bag I'd carried all night and placed the pie on the table. I made this for you, I said, because once you loved pumpkin pie, because once you loved me. Her sobs broke free. I love you now, she cried. I know, I said, but love should never be ashamed. I turned to leave. This time no one blocked the door. The boss walked beside me to the porch. Partner, he said, placing a hand on my shoulder, you'll always have a seat at my table. I smiled. Thank you, but tonight I think I'll eat somewhere quieter. The cold air welcomed me as I stepped outside. Behind me, the house stood silent, not in arrogance now, but in reflection. I walked down the steps with my head held high, not because I had won, but because I had never lost myself, and that, I realized, was the sweetest revenge of all.